Yeah, in terms of valence, I often use that word when I'm talking about empathy. So empathy can be understood as the donning of someone else's emotional clothing. Okay. But it doesn't have a particular valence to it. So, in other words, you might associate with someone's misery and take on that immiseration, or you might associate with someone's joy and take on their happiness. So, because empathy doesn't have a valence to it, it's neither positive or negative. It doesn't have a specific charge. It could go either direction. So, um, I think there's something interesting between this idea of empathy and compassion, for example, where, like I said, empathy is protean. There's another good word. It's flexible in terms of the emotion that you take on. So you might be sad because someone else is sad, or you might be happy because someone else is happy. And you have an emotional intelligence or sensibility that allows you to connect with that happiness or sadness easily. But compassion always has a positive valence. It is always about bringing an effusive kind of loving kindness to the presence of suffering. So it always is positive. And it also always has agency. Like empathy doesn't necessarily have agency. You can feel bad for someone or feel happy for someone, but you don't really need to do anything about it. But compassion always has a positive valence. You're always bringing loving kindness in a positive and effervescent way to a situation of suffering. And you're doing it with the express intent of alleviating that suffering. And this is why compassion is perhaps the highest of all virtues. And so not only are you bringing loving kindness to the presence of suffering in a manner that intends to alleviate that suffering, but compassion, just the word itself, is that it's concomitant with all of these kind of like Ubuntu in African culture, or Buddhist concepts of mutual interdependence, or I think there's a Japanese concept, Jiji Muji, I think it is, where essentially they all mean something similar, which is I am because we are. It's yoga. It's absolute utter sense of connection, where you stop seeing yourself as a separate individual, separate from this external universe, separate from each other, in competition with each other, separate from nature, in competition from nature, separate from the divine, all of this. And you see yourself as absolutely integrated into the logos, into the fabric of life, where my plight and my existence has no separation from yours, that we just appear, that there is only the world, that the phenomenon of what it is like to be Jeff Krasno has no separation from what it is like to be a tree, or what it is like to feel happiness or sadness. And so compassion, once you begin to engage in active compassion, where you are bringing loving kindness to the presence of suffering, you begin to embody a state of being, of integrated consciousness, of what the Buddha called samadhi, or in Hindu traditions, moksha, or I suppose in Christian traditions, Christ consciousness or unity consciousness, where those walls of separation really break down, where the ego dissipates, and you really feel this sense of integration with the world around you. And once you are able to achieve glimpses of that state, a lot of like really beautiful epiphanies emerge, and you start to see like this coherence within nature, and how that there's this intelligence this foundational intelligence in the world that is always trying to bring opposites together into coherence and beauty. That, we have these amazing plants that grow, this photosynthetic life that, catalyzes the sun's energy to create oxygen and glucose so we can exist, and that then we take that oxygen and glucose and synthesize it and create carbon dioxide and water, which is what they need to exist. This is complete mutual interdependence. And these kind of systems like the carbon cycle exist everywhere in nature, that the dance, this tango of positive charges and negative charges repulse and attract each other, and they form energy, electricity. Or the foundational component of an atom whose integrity is bound through the positively charged proton and the negatively charged electron, or the yin and the yang in Eastern religions. So what you begin to see, as you become more integrated into the fabric of life, is that we are constantly in this dance, and within this energy field of pulling opposites into coherence. And that gets to be like a really exciting enterprise.
Oh, I love that.
That's a gorgeous expression. Integrated into the fabric of life.